plus. So we'll call this sort of the evening show plus as we get ready to take you through and answer some of the questions that you've been sending in when it comes to who's going to see the snow, how much snow, who's going to see the freezing rain, how much freezing rain, and what about the rest of the areas. We're going to cover that here as we get you ready. So go ahead and put that back over on 4 and show just how everything continues to march through from the Panhandle, and look at that. So Mobile still seeing snow, Pensacola, Destin, all the way over, and it looks like the freezing rain, so that's that orange line that you see, is just now getting around Port St. Joe and Cape San Blas. That's that little beak there as you continue to move down before you get over toward Apalachicola and Tallahassee, which also looks like, and you can see where that orange line continues to bend around, that they're going back and forth between what could be the freezing rain as well as the sleet. And in Waycross, we watch it happen in real time with Eric Avanier, going from where he was saying, hey, we're hearing the more ice pellety kind of, the sleet sound, and then that changed over just at the bottom of the 6 o'clock, top of the 7 o'clock hour, where it changed over to snow, and he got to interview somebody there. The colors, by the way, when you see those in the lighter white is where we're seeing what would be coming down in a fraction per hour, but by the time you get to those darker purple areas, this is where it's coming down at an inch plus per hour. So this is going to lead to that accumulation that we've been talking about. We've got Michelle here with us, staying overnight tonight all the way to 2 o'clock in the morning, and the reason is we're going to be here as we start to get the reports not only of the snow, but also of the freezing rain. All right, so that is weather 4. This is what it looks like here with my computer. And is there a way, can we take the camera?
Yep.
And that at the same time?
There we go.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Behind you.
So here's what we have coming through. This is where the freezing rain and that sleet mix is already starting to settle in. As a matter of fact, at the airport, they sent out a report at the end of the 6 o'clock, beginning of the 7 o'clock hour, that was an airport weather warning.
Yep,
and this is what they were talking about. Hey, get ready for what will be that transition from the rain to the sleet, and of course some of the potential for snow up to and around the state line, including at the airport. We're close enough there between the airport and the state line for some of that winter mix to change over, at least temporarily, back and forth to what would be some of the snowfall here. All right, so I'll bring this to a pause and we'll go through some of the other. Does this thing actually reach the studio?
It does. It does. It should.
Well, here, you make it work. Or we'll just talk about the radar here
talk about this
as it continues. But
it should. Weather 1, yeah.
Well, maybe it's just a little far away.
Yeah. You
want to do it from in there?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead and give it to Ike.
Yeah.
I can click through it. See if it'll work for you.
All right,
over there.
cool.
One is it the play button?
Yeah.
The play one, yeah. All right, so
let's talk about what people are really asking, though, about will the roads freeze? And so in this scenario.
Will the roads freeze because of freezing rain? That's ice accumulation, and the answer is yes. Actually, Eric did something really cool in Waycross, because we were talking about that potential for, and you've seen it over and over again, I've seen it a gazillion times over the last week, the black ice. Technically, it's not black ice because the roads aren't frozen. This is ice accumulation because it will be accumulating from what falls from the cloud down to ground level. Where we could see that and where we're going to see it is across southeast Georgia, especially that stretch from, say, Homerville, Waycross, and Highway 82 and points northward. 2 to 4 inches, 2 to 5 inches of potential here is going to keep us under that snowfall in southeast Georgia. And then as cars start to drive on it and pack it down a little bit, it'll get crusty and become very much more ice-like. Now, meanwhile, what we're going to see along I-10 is the freezing rain, and as the freezing rain settles in, this is the ice accumulation. Basically what happens is you've got something frozen, it falls through a warm area, it thaws out barely, and it's still frozen enough or cold enough that as it comes down and makes contact here at ground level, it freezes again, and that begins the accumulation. Anything as far as ice is dangerous. 1/100 of an inch is potentially dangerous. 1/10 of an inch, now you actually have something that you could chip away, especially even if it's on your car, on the roads, on the bridges, where you have to make a direction change inside of a turn. That's where it could be really bad.
So this is working, it's just not, this isn't the right.
Are you on weather 1?
Yeah, this is weather 1.
So just go ahead and re-rack it then and see if the space bar will let you go through it that way. Maybe we're just a little too far from the there you go. Should be able to restart it there. So we're maybe just a little too far away to get our clicker to make contact, as it's all the way back over on the back side of Studio A. I know that they do it a lot in the morning.
Yeah, we do it. It usually works. Yeah.
So is it going again?
Yeah. It should be.
Oh, I think it moved. Let's see. I saw.
No.
Okay, so I see it moving.
Yeah, it's moving here. I'm just thinking we're not routed right.
Yeah, this isn't. Let's see here.
Go back to that one right there.
Let's go take radar. How about that?
Try that one.
No, that's still weather 4 that we're on here.
I'm
Oh,
trying
there
to,
we go. So.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
All right, I'm
wait,
starting
where'd
it
go?
over. Okay. Go now. There you go.
All right, so that's our.
Now
look
it's
at that.
moving.
All right.
Yep.
Wow, look at that. All right, so the darker purple and pink colors that we're seeing there, Fargo, almost all of Charleston County. It actually gets darker over the Okefenokee, and it could be just because the Okefenokee is still a little bit warmer, so
Right.
you got that cold air coming through. It may be changing the dew point content, and that's why we're seeing what could be the heavier precip coming through in and around the Okefenokee, and that's just to the east of Fargo. This is some of the rainfall totals that we've seen thus far. Wow, and this is a big jump for what we had even at 6 o'clock, where most of those were in the trace amounts, kind of like what we're seeing there in the middle at Keystone Heights, but everybody now is starting to move up. We've got almost a 1/4 of an inch at Orange Park, besting 1/10 of an inch there at the airport in Jacksonville, and everybody else is coming up to about 7/100 of an inch, so closing in on that 1/10 of an inch mark. That is not related to what will be this, and that's the freezing rain. There's the snow line as it continues to slowly edge southward here from Waycross. By the way, if you look at Waycross, the road that extends off to the west, almost perfect east to west kind of, that's Highway 82. And then if you go just to the south of Waycross where the O is, and there's that line that goes over to Brunswick, that's also Highway 82. So that's why we have the better chances as we move to the north. All right, let's switch over from the rainfall to what could be, wow, I'm already seeing some into Ocala and Volusia. That's weird since they haven't had anything as of yet.
I wonder if that's the winds that are
It's
coming
possible.
in.
Oh yeah, we have
a gale
mile-an-hour winds.
warning. Yeah.
The gale warning is something very important tomorrow, even overnight tonight. 30 to 40 mile-an-hour wind gust along the area beaches is going to make it feel like the low 20s, even into the teens. As far as our standing temperatures, we continue with those 30s. A 13 mile-an-hour wind at Waycross makes it feel like 23, and we're only 4 degrees warmer here at Jacksonville. So the wind chill is already settling in.
It just feels wet out there. It's just
wet
so
and
nasty.
damp and cold, and that's why we're going to see that split. So working from Georgia southward, the cold airs from the cloud bottoms all the way down to the ground, which is why it's more of a snow event. We saw the sleet transition, and that's because that little bit of a warm pocket has been shoved south, and where that's going to reside is near I-10.
But Richard, we're seeing all 4 of these elements in our region. I mean, it is
across the entire area.
It is so amazing.
And we'll see it at the same time.
Yeah.
So here in St. Augustine, you're not expected to see that transition into what would be the wintry mix. You're going to stay mostly with the rainfall, continue that over to areas of Clay County, especially along the river. Now the program changes a little bit by the time you get to, say, Middleburg in Clay County and points westward, and I'll show you as the snow line will continue to drop. Oh, look at that. So the update has come in, and what was showing 2 to 4 is now showing more of a solid 5 to possibly 6
inches. This is just a forecast. I mean, we're already seeing these numbers in real time in the Panhandle, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it is insane the amount of snow they're getting.
And we talked about that during the early shows, being that the Panhandle, I mean, Louisiana saw 8 inches along the Gulf, and then you had the 5 to 6 inches across areas of the Panhandle. So all of the models then started to bring those values up here for Waycross, Homerville, and Valdosta. It still looks like that is where the snow line is going to set, and we're not going to see it migrate much to the south, which is why we're still limited, although it did go up by 1/100 of an inch. So we're closer to what could be a 1/4 of an inch at the airport now versus that of McClenny. And I'll tell you what, if it makes it all the way out to the beaches, even a 1/10 of an inch at Mayport, that would be something absolutely spectacular.
We need you folks to send us your pictures on Snapchat.
Yeah.
We need to see it with our own eyes.
The reason I say Mayport would be an exception is because of the onshore winds will be warmer coming off of the water surface, and that's why I think getting the freezing rain seems a little bit more likely than seeing some of the snow. The numbers stop at I-10, even though you see Green Cove Springs, which has a reporting site. Gainesville, you see it go up to 2/100 of an inch. Here's where the I-75 corridor does have a slightly better chance than what we'll see across the inland areas. The numbers drop off to what would be less than 10% for you to have any kind of appreciable or accumulating freezing rain. Not to say that it can't be mixed in between bouts of rainfall, even some sleet from time to time as the cold air continues to settle, but anything between like what we're seeing there at McClenny and over toward Lake City, that could bring some problems on the roadways, possibly even temporarily close them until it melts away.
Yeah, I think some folks might question the difference, between St. Mary's and Jacksonville. You see that very darker pink circle in the middle.
And that goes back to what we were saying there with that northeasterly flow.
Yep.
So what that's showing you is that because of the influx of the onshore wind, that we could have a bit more of the freezing rain transition turning over to what could be about that half-inch point. A half-inch is a lot. A half-inch of freezing rain is heavy enough to potentially do damage. Trees, tree limbs, if anything's falling, whatever may be underneath of it. Could be your car top, it could be a rooftop, and in some cases, maybe older power lines or weak power lines, maybe then you could have the potential for taking that.
Well, I know where I live in Jacksonville Beach, they literally just put our lines underneath the ground.
I wish every neighborhood had that.
It was so cool to watch them take the wires down.
And go underneath.
Yeah.
I wish that every municipality had that. A lot of the newer neighborhoods, especially what's the one that's over there near Babcock Farms on the west coast, just outside of Fort Myers, their entire neighborhood, everything was done underground, and even after Ian, it went through and absolutely decimated Sanibel and Estero, parts of Captiva.
Yeah, I can't believe it's taken them this long.
Yeah. It is amazing because they lost one shingle out of that entire area. They had one house that lost a shingle, and it's just because they're built, under that whole idea with put everything underground and make everything as strong as you can. All right, there's the temperatures as we go overnight tonight. So this is the other issue. Not only do we have the potential for the freezing rain, but the temperatures at that point would easily support it. I'll argue the World Golf Village temperature. I think it's running way too high. Yeah, that'll be closer to freezing temperatures. Anybody brave enough to try to get out there and tackle one of the tee boxes. In southeast Georgia, and I'm surprised that we're not seeing the wording here, 26 degrees for a few hours is going to warrant what would be a hard freeze. So I do think that we're flirting very close to what could be hard freeze criteria. All week long we've been talking about, and all week long it's Tuesday, but even last week we were talking about it. Water's dripping in your pipes and all of that. So Katie did a great story today, illustrated that. You can find that at News4Jax. If you have any questions, basically your outside spigots, yes, you let those drip, and then from the you go to the termination point, so basically the sink that is farthest away from where the water comes into your house. I've always heard that you let those drip, a little bit of hot and a little bit of the cold, that way it's flowing through everything. I've seen lately that it says let everything drip, turn them all on, and I think that maybe it's more help than hindrance, but I think it's also a little bit wasteful. Every time that we've ever had this, and I've lived in areas where we had severe cold and winter type stuff, and we just would always go to that last point and let those drips, even in newer houses, condos and things like that. If you have an older home, off-grade home, manufactured home, you're on a well, so you've got a pump house and the pipe is exposed at any point coming to the house, it's a good idea not only to make sure that they're wrapped up, but to let the water drip there as well. Yeah,
Mark was saying earlier today with plants and stuff, especially out at the beach, it's going to be too windy for your coverings, and they're probably not going to freeze, and now they're wet. So. And
I've had a lot of folks say, hey, I've got wet coverings, and they've used the frost cloth or other types of blankets. Is this bad? If it's weighing down the plant and potentially going to break a limb or something, then that's bad. But if it's still covered, even though that got wet, that's not bad, because orange groves, apple orchards, all of those, even cherries, will heavily water before a big freeze, so that it will only get down to 32 degrees and it won't drop below that. So having that blanket will still act as a buffer and help to hold in some of the heat for your plants. Continuing through those temperatures, look at the highs tomorrow.
Not much warmer.
Today we went from 40 to 45.
Yeah,
We had
5
degree spread. Tomorrow we're going to go from temperatures that'll be in the near freezing here in Jacksonville, upper 20s, lower 30s, to only topping out at 40 degrees. And with those 30s for Waycross, Homer, these daytime highs, that's not enough for the snow that's there. So you're looking at a couple of days in Waycross, Homerville, and those areas that you're going to have the snow because 36. I've seen it snow at 36 degrees at ground level because everything being cold above it. But everybody, and you probably have the email too, I'm done with the cold. When's it going to warm up? This is Florida.
Well, and just because the rain stops doesn't mean the cold goes away with it. So
no, it doesn't.
We are left behind with some really chilly temperatures going into the weekend.
All the way into the weekend. We will still see freeze and frost conditions here, especially during the overnight. But as far as the work week temperatures, looking up to the next work week, I do see those seasonal temperatures making a return.
Is the pirate going to save us?
And the pirate, yeah, we had some great email about the pirate. What's the pirate for?
What's the pirate for?
It'd be great if we could go out there and decorate him with an inch of snow per hour. Maybe put a little bit of salt and pepper in his beard there. But you see the cloudy skies as they move through. Fernandina, you're more in line for what could be a little wintry mix, including that of the potential of some ice. Better chances will be just to the west of the marshes, Yulee, areas around Nassauville, and continuing through 95 and US 17. Also will have that chance. But look at this. All right,
look at this.
Michelle was mentioning the gale warning, so 30 to 40 mile an hour gusts. And we're talking about temperatures in the 20s. It's going to make it feel like the teens as we get ready to start tomorrow. That's great news for the kids that they called them out of school today.
Absolutely.
So being able to stay home and stay warm, you don't want to stand out in what would be a drizzly cold and then a biting wind chill
It's
coming
like a
through.
nor'easter just along the beaches. It just feels gross, that wet, cold. Everyone's like, it feels colder than I'm used to up north. Well, this is a super wet.
And that's the humidity.
Yeah.
That's just the dampness.
Right.
It just cuts right through everything. As far as those morning lows, like we mentioned here, we'll still have freeze and frost issues all the way through Sunday, only getting down to, I'll say, warming up to 34 degrees. Look at the streak of 20s. It is possible Friday and Saturday, 26 degrees. If we see that for a couple of hours, we might even see the hard freeze warnings across northeast Florida and southeast Georgia. Then getting closer to our seasonal temperatures, and that's almost spot on for Monday. Spotty chance for showers as those 60s continue into early next week.
Finally, Monday, Tuesday, that's where we should be for this time of year, right? Those mid-60s for our highs and those low 40s for our lows. Let's get there.
And after the streak, it's going to feel quite warm. Maybe
I
even
was
short
looking at the
sleeve weather.
50s, they'll feel warm.
Yeah, compared to waking up with temperatures in the 20s and 30s.
All right, so what else do we have coming up tonight? So
we're going to continue with our hourly updates. We're going to have one in about 19 minutes for the 8 o'clock, and that's basically going to be, hey, here's where we are. I think what we'll do is we'll go back and see if any of the accumulation reports have started to come in, so we'll give you an idea of what we've seen already. So this will be almost an hour. It was almost 7 o'clock on the dot where the snow started there in Waycross, so that should give us a good idea if we're seeing rates around that 1 inch point. Then we know that the purple colors are verifying, and we are seeing that inch per hour. The accumulation is happening, and we're waiting right now for that line to continue to move south of the state line as it moves over top of Jacksonville here and that entire I-10 line. Then we're going to get ready, and we'll be closely monitoring what could be some freezing rain at that point. FHP, DOT, all the county municipalities will be watching the roads for the potential of the icing, and I hope not, but maybe some closures.
Right, yeah, and we'll be here until 2 o'clock this morning, 2 o'clock rather, Wednesday morning. Continuing coverage, of course, online, on air, and we want to see your photos or your friends' photos.
Yes, please.
If you know anyone, and we've seen NOLA pictures. I mean, we've been watching traffic cameras along I-10.
We got a picture of Betty the dog laying by a fireplace.
We do love the dog
weather.
Sweater pictures.
It doesn't have to be ice. It doesn't have to be snow. It doesn't have to be the rain for those of you who are going to have the rain. If you're at home, hunkering down, and you're just watching this like you would hurricane coverage, and you're in a nice warm spot, maybe you got a fire, electric fireplace.
We want to see that too.
Click a pic, send it to us. We'll see if we can get some of those on air as we make our way through these cut-ins all the way through 2 a.m. We'll do the handoff at that point with Mark and Katie, and they'll take you through what will be the wake-up hours here after we see the snow and the ice overnight tonight.
Yeah, Richard, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right.
This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for tuning in.
First time.
Yeah.